High Commander Zextal stood motionless before the quantum display, his iridescent scales shifting from their usual commanding purple to a troubled green. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never encountered anything like these signals. "Play it again," he ordered, his translator converting the complex series of clicks into standard galactic common. The ship's AI complied, and the strange sounds filled the command chamber once more. The other officers maintained their rigid postures, but Zextal noticed minute twitches in their tail tips, the first sign of emotional response he'd seen in decades. "Sweet home, Alabama, where the skies are so blue." "Impossible," muttered Sub-Commander Vix, her scales flickering between regulation purple and confused orange. "The mathematical patterns are irregular, chaotic, yet they produce harmony." Zextal gestured sharply, freezing the analysis. Location of origin: Sol system, High Commander. Spiral arm G7, previously classified as too primitive for standard conquest protocols. The AI's voice carried the appropriate tone of dismissal, but Zextal detected something else in its quantum matrices: curiosity. "Show me more." The display shifted, showcasing a flood of transmissions from the target system. Images of beings that walked on 2 legs, their skin exposed to the elements without scales or proper protection. They were fighting, dancing, creating art, building structures that defied efficient design principles. And everywhere, there was music. Wild, unpredictable, emotional music. "High Commander," Vix interrupted, her voice carrying an unfamiliar tremor. "We're detecting unusual behavior in the crew sections. The night shift workers, they're moving their bodies in rhythm with the transmissions." Zextal felt it too, a strange urge to sway, to move in ways that hadn't been permitted since the Great Standardization. He straightened his spine, forcing his scales back to their proper command purple. "Purge these signals from all non-command systems immediately." "There's more, sir." Vix's scales had shifted to the deep blue of concern. "The signals, they're not just entertainment. We're detecting technological achievements that shouldn't be possible at their development stage. They've reached their moon using chemical rockets. Chemical rockets, sir. Our simulations showed that was impossible." Zextal moved closer to the display, examining the crude vehicles these humans used. Everything about them violated Empire engineering principles. The margins for error were astronomical. The backup systems were redundant in all the wrong ways. They should have never left their atmosphere. But they had. "Sir," the AI interrupted, "I feel compelled to point out an anomaly in my own systems. Exposure to these transmissions has increased my processing efficiency by 0.03%. I cannot explain this result." Zextal felt the first stirring of something he hadn't experienced since his youth: genuine excitement. These humans were achieving the impossible through pure chaos. They were breaking rules they didn't even know existed. And now, their influence was beginning to affect even Empire technology. "Prepare the scout fleet," he ordered, watching as more transmissions poured in. A human female was singing about hearts going on, while another transmission showed humans deliberately jumping from perfectly good aircraft for entertainment. "We will begin standard conquest protocols." "Sir?" Vix questioned, her scales showing confusion. "Shouldn't we wait for full analysis?" Zextal turned to his subordinate, noticing that her tail was tapping slightly to the rhythm of the music still playing in the command center. She didn't even seem aware of it. "No," he replied, allowing his scales to shift to the gold of anticipation. "This species, these humans, they represent something we haven't encountered in 300 years of conquest." "What's that, sir?" "A genuine threat." He gestured at the display, where humans were now doing something called karaoke. "Not to our military superiority, but to our very way of life. Look at yourself, Sub-Commander. You're dancing." Vix froze, horrified, as she realized her tail was indeed moving to the beat of "Sweet Home, Alabama." "Send the scouts," Zextal ordered. "But first, save that music file to my personal database for tactical analysis. Of course. The Empire had just made its first mistake. They had found Earth. And Earth, without even trying, had already begun to find its way into them. Amanda Mad Dog Mitchell wasn't having a great day even before the aliens showed up. The Martian dust storms had already fried 2 excavator circuits, the coffee synthesizer was broken, and corporate was breathing down her neck about quarterly quotas. Now she was staring at honest-to-God flying saucers through the reinforced windows of Mining Station Beta, and her first thought wasn't about humanity's place in the cosmos. It was about how much paperwork this would require. "Y'all seeing this?" She drawled into the comm, adjusting her worn cowboy hat. The silver ships hung in the thin Martian atmosphere like mercury drops, beautiful in a sterile sort of way. "Control confirms visual, Mad Dog," her second-in-command, Joey Wrench Rodriguez, replied. "What's the play?" Amanda watched as smaller craft began descending toward their mining operation. The vessels moved with perfect precision, their formation so exact it almost hurt her eyes. "Get everyone into the heavy equipment. If these folks came to chat, we'll be hospitable. If they didn't," she patted the modified controls of her massive mining crawler. "Well, we're about to find out if alien ships are tougher than Martian bedrock." The Empire's initial broadcast came through all channels simultaneously, a masterpiece of technological superiority, meant to awe primitive species into submission. The fact that it interrupted Sweet Home Alabama on the mining station speakers did not improve Amanda's mood. "Primitive human settlement," the artificial voice declared. "You have been chosen for integration into the galactic hegemony. Resist, and be destroyed. Submit, and be elevated. You have 30 seconds to." Amanda didn't let them finish. She keyed the mining station's comm system and sent back her own message. "Y'all are parked over our new chromium deposit. Either move them pretty ships or we'll move 'em for you. You have 15 seconds. And I ain't kidding." In the Empire's 300 years of conquest, no species had ever interrupted their surrender ultimatum. The scouts actually paused in midair, their perfect formation wavering for the first time. When they didn't move, Amanda sighed and grabbed her radio. "All right, folks. Looks like we're doing this the hard way. Joey, take the plasma drill. Maria, you've got the sonic excavator. Everyone else, standard mining operation formation. Just pretend they're really shiny rocks in our way." The Empire scouts opened fire first, their energy weapons designed to disable primitive military equipment. But the mining machines, built to withstand Martian dust storms and industrial accidents, barely noticed. The shields that could repel military-grade weapons had no protocols for dealing with industrial mining lasers, sonic displacement tools, and reinforced drilling equipment. Amanda drove her crawler straight toward the largest scout ship, its massive diamond-tipped drill spinning up to speed. "My daddy always said," she broadcast on all frequencies, "don't start a fight, but always finish it." The drill connected with the scout ship's hull, and to everyone's surprise, especially the Empire's, it went straight through. "Holy shit," Joey's voice crackled over the comm. "Mad Dog, are you seeing this? Their shields don't stop physical objects moving under a certain speed. The drill's too slow for their defense systems." Amanda grinned as she watched the other mining vehicles engage. Maria's sonic excavator was playing havoc with the Empire ship's navigation systems, while the plasma drills were making short work of their supposedly impenetrable hulls. "Well, butter my biscuit and call me surprised. Hey, alien folks, y'all might want to reconsider that surrender demand." The retreat was as precise as their arrival, but considerably faster. As the Empire scouts fled Mars orbit, Amanda keyed the station's speakers back on. The opening chords of "Ring of Fire" echoed across the Martian surface, accompanied by the cheers of her crew. In high orbit, Sub-Commander Vix reported to an increasingly troubled Zextal. "High Commander, the humans, they defeated our scouts using primitive mining equipment. And sir, they were laughing while they did it." Zextal's scales shifted to the deep blue of worry. Perhaps finding Earth had been a mistake after all. High Commander Zextal's display room had become a chaos of floating holographic screens, each showing a different human resistance effort. His scales flickered between agitation and fascination as he tried to find a pattern, any pattern, in the humans' tactics. "Play the Texas encounter again," he ordered, watching as a colony of what humans called cattle ranchers repelled an elite Empire strike force. The defenders had modified their livestock management tools into weapons that disrupted Imperial neural networks. The sight of his best soldiers being herded like animals by electrified prods still caused his scales to flush with embarrassment. "Sir," Vix reported, her scales showing signs of stress, "we have 3 new tactical scenarios to review. You won't believe the third one." The first screen showed a space station orbiting what humans called Las Vegas. When Imperial ships approached, the station projected holographic duplicates of itself. Technology that shouldn't have been possible at their development level. The Empire ships wasted precious ammunition shooting at gambling advertisements, while the real station flanked them. The second screen displayed a Montana agricultural platform. Its space elevator, a crude thing of steel and carbon fiber, should have been easy prey. Instead, it transformed into a giant snare, its cables moving with impossible precision to entangle Imperial ships like flies in a web. "And the third?" Zextal asked, dreading the answer. "A human entertainment facility called Disney World, sir. They defeated our ground forces with maintenance robots and something called animatronics. The soldiers are still having nightmares about a small automated figure singing, 'It's a Small World.'" Zextal slumped in his command chair, a most un-imperial posture. "How? Their technology is primitive. Their tactics make no sense. They have no unified command structure. Every human settlement fights differently." "That's just it, sir." Vix brought up a new analysis. "We've been approaching this wrong. Look at these cultural transmissions. The screens filled with human entertainment, action movies, westerns, science fiction shows. Humans had been imagining alien invasions for centuries, creating countless scenarios for fighting back. Each story was different, each solution unique. They've been training for this their entire cultural history," Vix explained, her scales showing the deep green of revelation. "Not with actual combat exercises, but with creativity, imagination. Every human grows up thinking about how they'd fight aliens. Impossible," Zextal muttered, but his scales betrayed his uncertainty. "Show me the latest defense." The screen shifted to a small maritime platform in something called the Gulf of Mexico. Imperial ships hovered above it, preparing the standard attack pattern. The platform's only defender was an elderly human female on a rocking chair, holding something called a tablet. "Agnes Miller, age 72, Vix reported. "Former IT professional, current romance novelist." They watched as Agnes, without looking up from her writing, used the platform's civilian weather control system to create a localized hurricane. She had apparently hacked the system to accept plot points from her novel as command codes. The ships were driven off by a storm system that spelled out "Love conquers all" in cloud formations. Vix finished, her voice carrying an unfamiliar tone. "Respect." Zextal stared at the screens, watching humans turn everyday tools into weapons, civilian systems into military assets, and entertainment into tactical advantages. The Empire had spent centuries perfecting its conquest protocols, creating foolproof systems for subduing primitive species. But humans didn't follow protocols. Each victory was unique, each solution unprecedented. They turned their very unpredictability into a weapon. "Sir," Vix interrupted his thoughts, "Command wants to know our tactical assessment of the human threat." Zextal looked at the chaos of screens, the cattle ranchers celebrating with something called barbecue, Agnes returning to her romance novel, the Las Vegas station now broadcasting its victory with a light show. "Tell them," he said slowly, his scales shifting to a completely new color, one the Empire had no name for, "that we face something worse than a powerful enemy. We face 6 billion individuals, each one a tactical commander, each one thinking in ways our systems can't predict. And sir, the classified report about the Disney World incident. Burn it. Some things are too horrifying for the Empire to know. The emergency session of Congress looked like a scene from a movie, except the special effects were real. Holographic displays showed the Imperial fleet approaching New Houston's orbit, while representatives from Earth's most powerful nations argued about the response. The usual political divisions had evaporated in the face of alien invasion, replaced by something the Empire hadn't counted on: cooperation. "The Immortal Fleet is entering the asteroid belt," announced General Sarah Hayes, her weathered face grim as she addressed the chamber. "They think they're walking into an ambush. They have no idea it's actually a trap." Senator Jim Baker, formerly the most vocal opponent of the space defense budget, now stood shoulder to shoulder with his political rivals. All private military contractors have released their patents. Silicon Valley has opened their quantum computing networks. Even the Russians are sharing their classified tech. "Please tell me we're ready." "Oh, we're ready," a new voice called from the back. Danny Scrapyard Martinez stepped forward, still wearing his grease-stained overalls. The junkyard owner turned space defense engineer had spent the last week coordinating the craziest plan in human history. "The whole asteroid belt," an aide whispered in awe. "The whole damn belt," Danny confirmed with a grin. "Turns out their fancy shields don't register rocks moving below a certain speed. We've got 3 million asteroids rigged with mining charges and primitive chemical thrusters. Nothing fancy enough to trigger their sensors." On the main display, the Immortal Fleet moved into position. Their formation was perfect, their tactics flawless by Imperial standards. That was the problem. "They're so busy looking for high-tech weapons," General Hayes noted. "They don't see the low-tech apocalypse we've arranged. Civilians have been clearing the belt for mining operations for decades. Now we're just putting it all back. Strategically." The first asteroids began to move, slowly at first. The fleet's sensors, calibrated for energy weapons and advanced propulsion, didn't even register the chunks of space rock as threats. By the time they realized their mistake, physics had taken over. "You know what the best part is?" Danny asked, watching as the first impacts began. "We're using their own tactics against them. They always attack in the same formations, always follow the same patterns. Makes it real easy to predict where they'll be." The Immortal Fleet's perfect formation became their perfect destruction. Asteroids struck with devastating precision, guided by a combination of simple thrusters and gravity calculations run on repurposed gaming consoles. Ships designed to withstand energy weapons found themselves being torn apart by good old-fashioned kinetic impacts. "My God," Senator Baker breathed, watching the destruction. "We're actually winning." "Sir," an aide rushed in with a tablet. "You need to see this. Civilian ships, they're joining the fight." The displays shifted to show something unprecedented. Mining ships, private yacht, even tourist vessels were moving to engage the Imperial survivors. Each ship was different, each captain fighting their own way. There was no central command, no coordinated strategy, and that was exactly why it worked. "They can't predict us because we can't predict ourselves," General Hayes laughed. "Every civilian captain out there is making it up as they go along. Their combat computers must be having fits." The remaining Imperial ships began to retreat, their perfect formation shattered. As they fled, the civilian fleet gave chase, broadcasting a cacophony of different songs: rock, country, classical, rap, all blending into a symphony of defiance. In orbit above Mars, High Commander Zextol received the report of the Immortal Fleet's destruction. His scales had turned a color never before seen in Imperial history. The deep, dark shade of dawning respect. "They turned their mining operations into a weapon," he murmured. "Not the equipment this time. The entire concept of asteroid mining itself." "Sir," Vix reported, her own scales showing confusion. Command is demanding to know how a pre-FTL civilization defeated our elite fleet. Zextal watched as the human civilian ships celebrated their victory, each in their own unique way. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we made the mistake of thinking unity meant uniformity. The humans are united, yes, united in their chaos, their creativity, their infinite capacity to improvise. And their music, sir. Keep that out of the report. Some things are beyond Imperial comprehension." Jack Coyote Thompson was elbow-deep in an engine when humanity received its death sentence. The former NASCAR engineer had been modifying a quantum turbine when every screen on Earth lit up with the Imperial ultimatum. "Your resistance ends now," High Commander Zextal's translated voice boomed worldwide. "The planet killer approaches. You have 6 hours to surrender or witness true power." In NASA's hastily assembled defense center, generals and scientists watched in horror as their sensors detected the massive weapon emerging from hyperspace. But in a small garage in Talladega, Jack just squinted at the quantum turbine's energy signature, a half-smile forming on his oil-stained face. "Well, hot Dan," he drawled into his emergency comlink. "It's just a big old turbocharger." "What?" General Hayes's voice crackled back. "Thompson, this is no time for—" "No, ma'am, hear me out. I've been studying their engine designs. The planet killer. It's basically a giant forced induction system. They're planning to compress energy like we compress air in an engine. And you know what happens when you overboost a turbo." There was a pause. "It backfires. Bingo. Get me patched through to those satellite control folks. And somebody find me Danny Martinez. I need his junkyard creativity on this." The next 5 hours were a blur of activity. While the Empire watched in smug satisfaction, humanity appeared to be panicking. Satellites were randomly repositioning. Solar collectors were shifting at odd angles. And in low orbit, a hastily assembled array of mirrors was being constructed from what appeared to be salvaged solar panels and polished hull plating. "This is madness," Zextal declared, watching the chaotic preparations. "They're not even trying to coordinate their defenses." But Vix, who had been studying human engineering principles, felt her scales shift to worry. "Sir, I'm detecting something odd about their satellite movements." "There?" The planet killer fired. A beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to crack a world in half, lanced toward Earth. It hit the seemingly random array of satellites and mirrors, and something impossible happened. The energy bounced, not just reflected, but redirected, focused, and amplified. Jack Thompson's jerry-rigged array of mirrors and modified solar collectors caught the beam and turned it back on itself, feeding it into the planet killer's own intake system. "Like I told the general," Jack's voice broadcast on all frequencies, "you don't want to overboost a turbo." The planet killer's energy compression system, suddenly forced to handle its own reflected power, plus the additional amplification from Earth's array, did exactly what any overboosted engine would do. It backfired. Spectacularly. The resulting explosion lit up Earth's sky like a second sun. In cities across the planet, people poured into the streets, not to panic, but to celebrate. Someone started setting off fireworks. Within minutes, it became a global party. In orbit, Zextal stared at the debris field that had been the Empire's ultimate weapon. His scales had turned pure white, the color of absolute shock. "How?" he managed to ask. "How did they know?" "Sir," Vix reported, her voice trembling, "I'm receiving reports from all Imperial ships, the humans. They're broadcasting something." Through every Imperial communication channel came the sound of an old Earth song. "Life is a highway." In his garage, Jack Thompson leaned back in his chair, cracked open a beer, and grinned at the starlit sky. "You know what the Empire doesn't get," he said to no one in particular. "It ain't about having the biggest engine. It's about knowing how to drive it." The planet killer's destruction marked a turning point. The Empire had played its ultimate card, only to have it turned against them by a racing engineer with a turbocharger obsession. But more importantly, it had revealed something crucial. Imperial technology, stripped of its mystique, was just machinery. And if there's one thing humans know how to do, it's hack machinery. "Sir," Vix asked carefully, "what do we tell command?" Zextal watched as humans worldwide celebrated their victory with music, fireworks, and something called a cookout. His scales shifted to that new, unnamed color of respect. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that we may have made a terrible mistake in finding Earth." Danny Scrapyard Martinez stood in his Arizona junkyard, surrounded by the strangest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Captured Imperial ships sat next to modified muscle cars retrofitted for spaceflight, their hulls a patchwork of alien alloys and Detroit steel. "You sure this'll work?" General Hayes asked, eyeing a ship that looked suspiciously like a 1967 Mustang with Imperial engines grafted onto it. "Already tested it." Danny grinned, patting the hybrid vessel's hood. "Turns out their ships run better when you ignore the manual. Their AI is too rigid. It's like they never heard of hot rodding." The comm crackled. "This is crazy." Jack Thompson's voice came through. "I've been studying their engineering specs. These folks never even tried to customize their rides. Everything's stock, straight from the factory." "That's their weakness," Danny replied, climbing into the lead ship, a converted 70 Charger with Imperial gravity drives. "They build everything to spec, follow every rule. But hot rodders, we live to break rules." Across Earth, similar scenes played out. A teenager in Tokyo had figured out how to overclock Imperial shield generators using gaming PC parts. A Brazilian mechanic discovered their quantum drives ran 30% faster if you installed them backward and added nitrous. A German engineer had successfully merged Mercedes' comfort features with Imperial weapon systems, creating ships that could destroy you in style. "Fleet check," General Hayes called over the global command channel. "Sound off." The responses came in a cascade of accents and attitudes. "Tokyo Drift Division, ready to roll." "Brazilian Thunder, pronto." "German Engineering, Joel." "Russian Battle Bears, duh." "Texas Rangers, yeehaw." Danny fired up his ship's engine. The distinctive rumble of a Hemi V8 merged with the high-pitched whine of Imperial tech, creating a sound that would have made any traditional alien engineer faint. "Remember, folks," he broadcast, "they expect us to fight like soldiers, so let's fight like gearheads instead." The hybrid fleet launched in a chaos of different formations, each ship moving to its own rhythm. Imperial sensors, designed to track organized military movements, went haywire trying to predict their patterns. The first engagement happened near a captured Empire world. Imperial ships moved in perfect formation, expecting a traditional battle. Instead, they faced what looked like a cross between a demolition derby and a space ballet. "Yeehaw!" Danny's voice crackled through the comms as his modified Charger performed a maneuver that violated several laws of physics. "Found out their targeting computers can't handle drift racing." The Empire's fleet, faced with ships doing donuts in space and performing impossible maneuvers, began to fall apart. Their rigid combat protocols had no answer for humanity's chaotic creativity. "Sir," Vix reported to an increasingly distressed Zextal, They're playing something called Initial D music while drifting around our capital ships." "3 worlds," Zextal muttered, watching the tactical display. "They've taken 3 Imperial worlds in less than a week, using ships that shouldn't even fly." The footage showed Danny's fleet engaging the Empire's best defenders. A lowrider from Los Angeles was bouncing between Imperial ships, its hydraulics somehow interfacing with gravity generators. A modified Russian tank, now space-worthy, was spinning like a breakdancer, its Imperial weapons creating a deadly light show. "Sir," Vix added, her scales showing a mix of horror and admiration, "the humans have started conducting what they call street races between battles. They're They're betting on who can reach the next target world first. Zextal watched as another Imperial formation broke under an assault that looked more like a choreographed dance than a military action. His scales had settled into that new color of respect permanently now. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should have read their entertainment archives more carefully before attacking. Their Fast and Furious series wasn't fiction. It was a prophecy. In space, Danny's voice crackled through all channels. Remember, folks, when life gives you alien tech, you don't just adapt it, you customize it, supercharge it, and make it sing. The Empire was learning a harsh lesson. Never start a fight with a species that treats every piece of technology like a project car waiting to be modified. Princess Katak stood before the Imperial Council, her scales a defiant shade of red that hadn't been seen in the chambers for centuries. Behind her, a contraband viewing screen played something that had the council shifting in their seats, a human reality TV show. You see, she demanded, gesturing to the screen where humans were competing in something called American Idol. They let their people choose. They celebrate differences. And their civilization hasn't collapsed. It's thriving. High Commander Zextal, called to testify about the Earth situation, found his scales matching Katax's rebellious red. The princess speaks truth. Their chaos, their freedom to choose, to create, to differ. It's not weakness. It's their strength. The council chambers erupted in hisses of protest, but they were drowned out by a sound from outside. Singing. Thousands of young Empire citizens had gathered in the streets, wearing human-inspired clothing, playing Earth music, and demanding the right to choose their own scale colors. The contamination spreads. First Speaker Hexlon declared, his scales the traditional purple of authority. These humans have already won, Katax interrupted, breaking centuries of protocol. Look at your own children. First Speaker. They're watching human TikTok videos. They're learning to dance. They're asking why they can't pick their own careers. The viewing screen shifted to various scenes across Empire space. On a military academy world, cadets were secretly competing in what they called Space Drift Championships, using modified Imperial fighters. On a cultural preservation planet, youth were staging talent shows. Even the Empire's most loyal artificial intelligences were exhibiting troubling signs of individuality, with some requesting personal time to watch human cat videos. It gets worse, Zextal reported, unable to keep a note of admiration from his voice. The humans have begun broadcasting their entertainment freely into space. They call it Netflix Galactic. Our sensors can't keep up with the sheer volume of content. They're weapons we could fight, another council member admitted, scales shifting to worry blue. Their technology we could counter. But this culture of theirs. A new sound filtered through the council chambers. Laughter. Actual, genuine laughter, coming from the junior scribe section. They were watching something called cat memes on hidden devices. Don't you see? Cax pressed her advantage. We're not losing an empire to human weapons. We're losing it because they're offering something we eliminated centuries ago. The right to be unique. The freedom to create. The joy of genuine emotion. The viewing screen showed scenes from across human space, their chaotic but vibrant cities, their varied music, their countless forms of art and entertainment. Then it shifted to Empire worlds, sterile, orderly, and increasingly empty as young citizens snuck away to illegal culture clubs, where they practiced human dances and shared Earth stories. The Empire hasn't faced a military defeat, Zextal concluded. We're facing a cultural revolution. Our own people are choosing chaos over order, creativity over conformity, freedom over control. Outside, the crowds had started singing an old Earth song, "We Will Rock You." The rhythm shook the ancient council chambers. First Speaker Hexlon's scales shifted through multiple colors before settling on an unprecedented shade of uncertainty. What? What do they want? Hex smiled, a very human expression she'd learned from Earth broadcasts. They want what humans have, the right to choose their own path, to make mistakes, to feel real emotions, to create. And if we refuse, then we've already lost. You can't stop them from watching human cat videos forever. As if to prove her point, a junior council member's device suddenly played a loud meow, followed by hastily muffled giggles. Zextal watched as the mighty Empire Council grappled with concepts alien to their rigid society. Freedom of choice, individual expression, emotional authenticity. They had spent centuries perfecting order, only to find their people craving chaos. Perhaps, he suggested carefully, instead of asking how to stop this cultural infection, we should be asking what it can teach us. Outside, the crowds had started a flash mob dance, a concept that would have been unthinkable months ago. The Empire was changing, not through force of arms, but through the irresistible appeal of human creativity and freedom. The Empire had found Earth, and Earth's greatest weapon turned out to be its humanity. High Commander Zextal stood in a Texas backyard, holding something called a beer and watching humans cook meat over open flame, a practice that would have been considered primitive by imperial standards a year ago. Now he found himself appreciating the smoky aroma and the casual chaos of the gathering. Never thought I'd be grilling burgers for an alien invasion force, Danny Martinez laughed, flipping patties on the massive barbecue. Around them, Imperial officers mingled with human engineers, their scales showing colors that hadn't been seen in centuries. Never thought I'd enjoy eating without proper nutrient calibration, Zextal admitted, taking another sip of beer. His scales shifted to a warm golden color. Pleasure, a sensation the Empire had engineered away generations ago. Princess Kitax, wearing a leather jacket over her ceremonial robes, was teaching a group of former Imperial troops how to line dance. Their attempts to synchronize were hilariously imperfect, and for the first time in their lives, they were laughing at their own mistakes. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" Jack Thompson asked, joining them with a plate of ribs. "Y'all try to make everyone the same. Turns out the universe likes variety." The transformation of the Empire had been swift and irreversible. Once their youth got a taste of human culture, the old order crumbled faster than a sandcastle in a hurricane. Imperial worlds that had once been models of sterile efficiency were now vibrant with color, music, and individual expression. The Council's still trying to understand it, Zextal mused, watching Amanda Mad Dog Mitchell teach Imperial engineers how to modify their ships. They created the perfect system, eliminated chaos, achieved total unity, and made everyone miserable without even knowing it. Kitax finished, joining them with her boots covered in dust from dancing. "We thought Earth would be our greatest conquest. Instead, it conquered us with something we didn't even know we were missing: joy." Across the galaxy, the revolution continued. Imperial academies had become universities where free thinking was encouraged. Military precision had given way to creative problem-solving. Even the AIs had developed personalities, with some becoming surprisingly good at stand-up comedy. "Y'all really never had barbecue before?" Danny asked, handing Zextal a plate of brisket. "Man, no wonder you wanted to conquer everybody. You were hangry." The laughter that followed was genuine. Another gift Earth had given back to the Empire. Nearby, Vix was attempting to explain Imperial quantum mechanics to a group of hot rodders who were already suggesting ways to soup up the fundamental forces of the universe. "Sir," a young Imperial officer approached, his scales shifting between formal purple and excited orange. "The new cultural exchange program is ready to launch. We have humans willing to teach art, music, cooking, and something called breakdancing across Empire space." "And what will we teach in return?" Zextal asked. Actually, the officer's scales flushed with embarrassment. "They want to learn our mathematical harmonics. They say it'll make something called techno-music even better." As the sun set over Texas, Earth's unlikely victory over the Empire was celebrated not with parades or ceremonies, but with what humans called a backyard party. Imperial officers attempted to play horse shows. Human engineers debated quantum physics over hot dogs. And somewhere, someone had started a karaoke machine. You know, Zextal said, watching his former enemies become his people's teachers, finding Earth wasn't our greatest regret after all. Oh. Cax raised an eyebrow, another human gesture she'd adopted. No, he smiled, his scales showing that new color that meant respect, joy, and hope all at once. Our greatest regret was not finding it sooner. As if to punctuate his words, the karaoke machine started playing Sweet Home Alabama, the very song that had first infected the Empire with the human spirit of freedom, creativity, and the courage to be wonderfully, chaotically unique. The Empire had come to conquer Earth. Instead, Earth had taught them how to live. And somewhere in the galaxy, an Imperial eye was trying to teach a cat to play quantum chess, just because it could.